If you're an average person on the internet trying to understand what's going on with DeepSeek and OpenAI and Nvidia losing $600 billion in one day, I got you. Basically, what is happening right now is that the AI tech bros in America are crashing out and panicking because the AI tech bros in China created an AI model called DeepSeek, and it is as good as ChatGPT. And best of all, it's open source, and they created it at a fraction of the price. And people are panicking because they're like, oh, we've been told that we need billions of dollars to create something amazing. But there's so much more to this conversation. It's not really China versus the US. It's much deeper than that. And we're going to talk about it in this episode of the Tech Unlock podcast. Welcome to the Tech Unlock podcast, where we demystify emerging technologies and give you the keys to unlock your successful tech career. I'm your host, Grace McJones. Let's unlock the future together. Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Tech Unlock podcast. Now, before we dive into DeepSeek R1 and Nvidia stock crashing and the end of OpenAI possibly, let's take a look at how mainstream media and the tech industry reacted to the release of R1. Granted, this came out in December of 2024, but for some reason it's catching wind now, and it's just interesting to see how everyone's responding to it. Let's take a look.
China's latest AI breakthrough has leapfrogged the world.
I think we should take the development out of China very, very seriously.
A game-changing move that does not come from OpenAI, Google, or Meta.
There is a new model that has all of the valley buzzing,
but from a Chinese lab called DeepSeek.
It's opened a lot of eyes of what is actually happening in AI in China.
What took Google and OpenAI years and hundreds of millions of dollars to build, DeepSeek says took it just 2 months and less than $6 million.
They have the best open source model, and all the American developers are building on that.
They have the best open source model. That comment was by the co-founder and CEO of Perplexity. And I have to agree. It's interesting to see how everyone's taking this development very, very seriously. And I just feel it's funny. I'm not gonna lie. When I look at this, it reminds me of a movie and a particular scene. And this is for my tech and film nerds. But in Iron Man 1, there's a scene where Tony Stark is in jail or in a cave, and he has to build an Iron Man suit with scraps and scrap metal and almost nothing. And he ends up doing it, and he, spoiler alert, he is able to escape and blah, 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 blah. While back in the city, the villain, he has all the smartest people, and he has the state of the art, equipment and all that kind of stuff. And yet they're not able to build something that is really suitable.
It's impossible. Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a bunch of scraps.
And I'm just kind of low-key, that's kind of what's happening right now, because I feel like with all the investments that we've made in AI, we can now see that it doesn't take billions of dollars. It doesn't take destroying the environment. There are better ways to do this. But because of capitalism, everyone's like, oh, it has to cost this much, and this is how much we have to invest. And granted, obviously, using AI cost a lot of money. Let's just be honest. We need the data centers, we need all of that. But it's at what price though? Does it really take all that much? And so it's interesting to see DeepSeek coming out and say oh, actually, we, did this at a fraction of the cost, and we actually made it open source so that you can see how we created it, and you can create something for free using all our stuff. And there's a bigger conversation to be had here. As you can see with mainstream media, it's positioned as US versus China in the AI race, which is good for obviously clickbaits and all that kind of stuff. But there's a deeper conversation that no one's really talking about here that I want us to talk about, and we'll get to very soon. But first, let's look into what DeepSeek R1 is at a high level and how you can use it if you're looking to explore it. So DeepSeek R1 right now is the number one app within the US and 51 other countries. And so if you go to the Apple Store, I'm not sure about the Google Play Store, but if you go to Apple Store, type in DeepSeek, you can see it's number one right now, I think followed by OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Threads by Meta. And you can download it and play around with it. But if you're not sure about signing up because it's based in China and you're not sure about your, data security and all that kind of stuff. You can also use it in Perplexity AI. In Perplexity, you can specify the type of model that you want to use, and then you can use DeepSeek through their interface. So basically, that's it. It's a kind of like a better reasoning model that is affordable, much cheaper. And so if you're have a subscription to OpenAI, ChatGPT, paying that $200, bro, what are you doing? Don't do it. Just cancel it. Well, don't cancel it because, if you have, worries about security and all that kind of stuff, you don't have to do that. But just consider that there are other better options. So that's how I would explain what DeepSeek is. But here's what Twitter and Threads, this is how people are describing what's happening right now. DeepSeek is like buying the most expensive house in the neighborhood for $10 million, and a guy next month buys a similar house next door for $200K. Very few understand what this means, but they will soon feel it. This is from the CEO of Perplexity. The world's most powerful reasoning model, DeepSeek R1, with reasoning traces, is now on Perplexity for supporting your daily deep web search. Enjoy. Limits will be increased during the day. Updates coming soon. This is something that he tweeted earlier today. So basically, if you wanted to try DeepSeek in a way that it's safe and not, giving your information to China, you can definitely check it out. And I like this tweet by Gary Tan. I have to admit, I just bought the NVIDIA dip. +1, Gary, I did the same thing. Someone says, Wall Street's selling of AI based on DeepSeek shows you how little the general public understands AI. So based on the movement that we saw in the market today, it shows that a lot of people don't understand how AI development works, because NVIDIA is essential into helping all these tech companies create AI or develop AI models, because the chips that they sell is what everyone is using to build and train their AI models. And so I was confused of why are people selling their stocks? This is not the end. If anything, it's very encouraging to see that DeepSeek R1 was released and trained on older chips from NVIDIA. So imagine in the future if they get their hands on, better chips and GPUs, imagine what they could create. And it was interesting to see the perspective of the CEO of Scale AI about how they're building this. Apparently, they're not supposed to have some of these NVIDIA chips, but yet they do, and this is what they're building with it. And I was like, yeah, I agree with what he says.
The Chinese labs, they have more H100s than people think.
And these are the highest powered NVIDIA chips that they were not supposed to have.
Yes. My understanding is that DeepSeek has about 50,000 H100s. Which they can't talk about, obviously, because it is against the export controls that the United States has put in place. And I think it is true that, I think they have more chips than other people expect, but also on a go-forward basis, they are going to be limited by the chip controls and the export controls that we have in place.
So that makes sense. We have export controls because we are, in the U.S., trying to have a monopoly of certain things. And right now, we want to make sure that we are number one in that AI race. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, if we're the mass, the number one people creating the chips that everyone needs to develop very efficient AI models, then yeah, we want to have control on how it's exported. But this raises an interesting question, because I feel like right now within the tech world and AI world, there is a monopoly within the US of who is building AI. And Sam Altman actually said this, that they don't have a competition in terms of how effective and how amazing ChatGPT works, which is very debatable. And I was like, yeah, I wonder why that is. Competition isn't really there. Obviously we have Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, but because ChatGPT, the advantage that it has, OpenAI, is that they kind of came out first. And so from a branding and user interface perspective, they have an advantage because everyone is used to ChatGPT anytime we talk about AI models. That's the first thing that people were introduced to. So they have that brand equity working for them. And so it'd be harder to take people to something else, right? And say okay, no, try this, AI model. It's 10 times better, faster. And it's going to be hard for people to shift. And this is just basic customer and user behavior 101. But a big question comes to mind, and this question was raised by the FTC chair, which I'm sad that she's leaving or resigning, Lena Khan, and she said, what is better for innovation, right? Is monopolies better for innovation, or is competition better for innovation? And we all know the answer, right? It's competition.
More generally, significant research shows that while monopolies may help deliver marginal innovations and improvements, breakthrough and paradigm-shifting innovations have historically come from the disruptive outsider. It is our commitment to free and fair competition that has allowed America to harness the talents of its citizens, reap breakthrough innovations, and lead as an economic powerhouse.
And right now within the AI world and the tech world, we do have a monopoly. Only a few tech companies are creating AI models or have, the investment to make it happen. And we know that monopolies don't lead to innovation. We need competition. We need a free market. We need people to feel a challenge to create and to build AI models that benefits everyone, not just a certain group of people or a certain group of companies. And it's interesting to see because almost every big tech company has pledged some amount to build an AI infrastructure in some way or form, whether that's $80 billion from Microsoft or the $11 billion from Amazon, or even the new project Stargate investments with OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. And I'm like, that is a lot of zeros. That is a lot of money. And is it the best use of resources, right? Even when it comes to the environment, like, are we making sure that we're creating consciously and for sustainability? And I think we all know the answer. It's not yes. I think it's more about, capitalism and to show that, okay, this company is leading with AI and that company is doing what. But now that DeepSeek has entered the game, things are becoming much more interesting. I think that a lot of people are seeing that they kind of feel scammed in terms of like, oh, we never needed that much money in the beginning. People just wanted to make sure that it's a monopoly and they're locked in into using certain AI models by certain tech companies. And now our eyes have been open and we can all build something different. Granted, there's always going to be that tension of like, well, this is from China. But now that we know that it's possible to spend less money, make it free, make it open source, and allow people to create with these tools, then we can actually have some innovation within AI and within tech. So the most important conversation we need to have here, in my opinion, is not China versus the US. It's open source AI versus closed AI, which is really what is being discussed here, right? Because OpenAI, ironically, is not being open in terms of how it shares how they build their AI models. Obviously, they have some, trainings and some research that people can use, which DeepSeek actually used when creating its model. You can see it all there. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, now that we know that closing off this AI model is not beneficial for the whole world, and DeepSeek opened it up and saying like, hey y'all, you can go in, take whatever you want and build your own model. It's like, okay, this is the way to go because this will lead into more competition and more innovation in general. So I bring up this point about open source models versus proprietary ones because I actually saw something on LinkedIn and on Threads that caught my attention, and this statement is by Jan LeCun, a professor at NYU and chief AI scientist at Meta. And he basically says to people who see the performance of DeepSeek and think China is surpassing the US in AI, you are reading this wrong. The correct reading is open source models are surpassing proprietary ones. DeepSeek has profited from open research and open source like PyTorch and Llama from Meta. They came up with the new ideas and built them on top of other people's work. Because their work is published in open source, everyone can profit from it. That is the power of open research and open source. And I completely agree with his statement. I think when we make things open source, it is better for everyone because we can be more innovative and there's going to be more competition. But let me know what you think. Do you think that this AI bubble is finally bursting, or you feel like this is just the beginning of a new era? And do you think we're going to continue pumping billions of dollars into AI infrastructure, or this new AI model with DeepSeek is going to stop or slow down how much we spend on AI? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching and thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on the Tech Podcast.